This statue has been moved from upstairs to now next to me. I'm proud to have it next to me, representing discipline in the face of spoiled brattiness. Greg Cote he's descended into the stage. I haven't seen it in a long time. I really haven't. Local columnist, a man of dignity who has written a number of columns over the years and doesn't usually excoriate anyone. I remember at the end, look, this used to mean something when Billy talks about reporters and stuff. It used to mean something when the local columnist was somebody of a certain grace who, in our community at least, when he ripped somebody, it meant something.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, gas bags on the radio like us, or even kids in the newspaper like me. When I ripped somebody, it meant less than when Edwin Pope was doing it. Greg Cote is now Edwin Pope in our market, and I don't know that I've ever seen him as angry at an athlete as he presently is at Jimmy Butler. He's descended in the kind of name-calling that I did when Saban left Miami to go to Alabama, and I was wandering everywhere calling him a carpet salesman, because he sold everybody a bunch of things about how he wanted to be here, and I wandered around calling him names for an entire year.
The old bill of goods, huh?
I mean, he did. It was the easiest thing. Liar!
Yeah.
But now Greg Cote has arrived at quitter.
Yeah. He's quit on everybody. He's quit on his team, on his teammates, on the fans, on the city of Miami, on the integrity of the NBA. I think his actions during all this, and I wrote this column before he was suspended yesterday for a third time this month. He's simply acting unprofessionally. He's acting childishly. I think what he's done lapses on the betrayal level somewhere near traitorous in his actions. I just think he's been I cheer the Heat for suspending him without pay indefinitely because he deserves it. I haven't, in all my time covering this market, I haven't seen or certainly don't recall another instance of an athlete, let alone a star athlete, behaving like this and just he's ruined his legacy, okay? He was the popular player who would have been a tier below Dwayne Wade in terms of being beloved in this market. That's blown up by his own actions.
It wasn't a great ending with Shaq. I know this. I'm not saying that Shaq was worse than this.
Shaq won a title, though.
I mean, but it was bad at the end.
It was bad.
Yep.
And look, Dwayne Wade didn't go out on the right terms and went to 2 other cities before he came back. I'm not saying everything is a happy ending, but Jimmy Butler has just taken a stick of dynamite to his own legacy down here.
If I may here, because I haven't done any reporting on what happened yesterday. I've read the reports. I don't know how much reporting you have done, Greg. I do believe that at this point, I'm led to assume that the Heat will suspend him if he hiccups wrong. Like that the rules have all changed now to whatever it is we need to do to suspend him. He's now practicing with a bunch of guys who don't want to be practicing with him. If you believe in the cultish aspects of, look, man, these people are very much, it's us against everybody. You're either in here or you're not, because if we're going to be throwing up every day from the workouts, like we're all in here on the same thing to win. You're now embarrassing in public a guy who's had godfather power in this sport, earned for 50 years. I cannot imagine how cruel and petty he is doing this as he's got the strength of everybody behind him, Stugotz, because it's the easiest thing in the world right now to lean back on Jimmy Butler. The entire machine does. Nobody's going to support what he's doing now. That's not going to be supported even by the crassest of businessmen. But it is the model for how you get your way in this sport. They benefited off of it 15 years ago, and they suffer from it now. Like, this is what happens when the player gets the power.
For the audio audience, Dan is saying all this while pointing to a cardboard cutout of Pat Riley. I mean,
kind of like he was a weatherman.
It's a statue. It's our statue. Yeah. We said this was a statue. It's not a cardboard cutout. It was on the roof of the Elser Hotel because this show now stands in solidarity with Pat Riley. But this particular name calling, can you guys help me? Because I know everybody's tired of this. And look, it's the gossipy, lame news of the moment in sports if you don't want to talk about Jerry Jones. Another suspension for a 500 team that had a nice win last night. against Orlando in a regular season that only matters for these things. Like, because Boston's losing against Houston, and we'll make that a nice story, but everyone knows come playoff time, Boston is going to be the team to beat if they're healthy. Even if they go through 20 games, they're weird and lose at home to Houston.
Yep. Maybe the Cavs.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe the Knicks. The Knicks looked great last night as well. This Heat is a bit of a nowhere team right now. And this kind of stuff is stuff that sports fans love to eat up. I ask you to imagine, what do you imagine that workplace is like for him right now? The mess he made when I explained to you that this is a cult of people who are going to now line up against you. You're either with us or you're against us. So now the whole machine works against Jimmy Butler. It's not just Pat Riley. It's not just statement after statement. Here's the suspension. Here's another $500,000. The media is going to also do what Greg Cote's going to do because the city's going to applaud Greg Cote saying it.
I don't think he really cares if everyone's against him. In fact, I think Jimmy's kind of comfortable when everyone is going against Jimmy Butler.
Agreed.
So I don't know how it's going to impact him. I do wonder how him not being there impacts the team. Is that a better environment? It seems, from reports that I have read and heard from, it seems like the players do like it more when Jimmy's not around. So they won last night. That was a great win. They came back. They got the W. I may or may not have had the Heat. -1.
Do you think Jimmy's losing this exchange? Because, Jimmy's winning this exchange. Jimmy's getting exactly what he wanted. They said a month ago there's no circumstance in which we will trade Jimmy Butler. And if they don't trade Jimmy Butler, they're just going to have to deal with a year's worth of suspensions every 5 minutes whenever he comes back from his previous suspension. They're going to get rid of him eventually, and he'll go to a new team that hopefully will get him the contract that he wants that they weren't going to give him at this time, which is why he kind of started this stink to begin with. He's not losing. He's getting exactly what he wanted. And by the way, if this wasn't happening here in Miami, we'd all think this was hilarious. We'd all think this is exactly, you'd be talking about how the player has taken the power away from management and how he's doing his own thing.
But it is hilarious.
I know, hilarious. But we're viewing this from a Miami prism where we're like, this is no way to behave. And this is exactly how the Heat got everyone they've gotten as of late.
That's correct.
This is just the most extreme example so far.
It's amazing.
It's kind of crazy that he's getting what he wants while behaving terribly. Yeah. And supposedly he's getting punished, but he's really just getting what he wants. You think he wants to go back and play these games? No. He wants to go to paddleball, pickleball tournaments and get screamed at by fans and get into fights with people.
On that one, I might stop you just because I do think he wanted the public spectacle of getting his money by showing up and then not starting. And I do believe it bothered him that he was not starting. And so I believe the reports that he walked out of practice early. I would stay until the end of practice if I were him every day because I would assume they are looking for ways to find that Jimmy Butler to take. You basically have an organization that I'm assuming is when he shows up to work for this week of days. If indeed it's not going to be, okay, we'll keep you after the trade deadline. We got 10 more teams available to bid on you in the offseason, and then we'll work this to see if you'll ruin the second half of the season, and we'll see if you opt in as your threat. If that's where all of this is going to go. If they actually don't trade him, because I don't know if anyone in our audience thinks that there's a possibility, but I would say there's a more than 0% chance that they don't trade him. I don't think it's a 0% chance that they trade him before the trade deadline. They might make his life miserable right up into the offseason. You want to keep coming to work this way?
But if they don't trade him, it's just it's just ego, right? It's just them thinking we need to win every single trade that we're part of, so we're not going to get rid of Jimmy unless we get better, which is not how these exchanges happen with disgruntled superstars. He's costing himself money. He's losing there. His hope is that he makes all of that money back on signing a deal that he's not going to get. But this is not a relationship that is going to be fixed at any point in time. And he walked out because his option is stay here and now we're going to embarrass you by not starting you. And he's
stunned.
No.
You'd be stunned if they kept him past the trade deadline and said, we'll try to do it this way with Ware. He's going to be Ware's going to be rookie of the year. We'll try and do it with big front lines.
If they do it, I believe that it's just because of ego and it's to try to prove a point that the players don't have the control here. It's not for the betterment of the team.
Well, it would be because they're not getting the type of trade that they want. They don't want to take on money that goes beyond next season. And so they have made it pretty clear from the beginning that They're willing to take expiring contracts, guys that aren't even necessarily that productive, but they'd prefer guys that can play a role on the team. They'd prefer to get draft capital, and they want to free up that space. That's why they handled it the way they did going into this season, which was if the worst case scenario is that Jimmy decides he wants to leave after this year, fine, we'll take the cap space. But the way that this has gone for Jimmy, to say that he's sort of winning on this one, look, the guy tried to force his way out. He has yet to be traded. He's torched his reputation with a segment of the Heat fan base, not everybody, and there are plenty of fans that understandably are on his side. But he also is not getting traded where he wants to go. Phoenix is in a total stalemate right now because Bradley Beal won't accept a trade to Chicago. They seemingly cannot move his albatross of a contract. And so Jimmy is going to end up more likely than not. It doesn't mean he won't get traded to Phoenix, but there is a chance he still just gets traded somewhere else that also wants him as a rental and doesn't want to extend him and is in the exact same spot after torching his reputation with a segment of a fan base that loved him.
And losing millions along the way.
Jimmy
right.
Butler does not lose any sleep at night over whether or not a segment of the Heat fandom doesn't respect
No, that's
him.
exactly,
Not a
and you're
second.
right.
Not a
Yes.
second.
What
of
about other
But he has
GMs?
lost
is
millions of
interrupted.
dollars.
What about other GMs? Like, this isn't like what GM out there is like, you know who I really want on my team? You know what's going to bring us all
A
together?
GM who needs him.
Well, the Heat were stupid for bringing him in because he's done this
look,
everywhere he's
I
been.
don't- I don't disagree
this
with
is
that.
surprising to absolutely no one. Everyone knew this was going to happen, except we believe that Heat culture fairy dust was going to fix this problem. And no, the Godfather's going to change Jimmy Butler. Except guess what? His contract is up, and he's behaving the way he always behaves at this time in his career. This is not a surprise to anyone.
That's why
How could they be surprised by this? I don't understand how you guys are like, we couldn't have seen this coming. How? How didn't any of you see this coming?
There is no winner because everyone looks bad in this
That's right.
situation.
Except Kevin
it's
Love.
just a bunch of losers.
Kevin
No, you're
Love
right about that.
Yeah.
having fun on the internet with it.
I would too, honestly. They, some of them are texting Jimmy like, Jimmy, you should do this. Like all the other disgruntles that aren't in the position to be disgruntled, are like, you know what I would do if I was you. And then they go and just like poke and prod. Like, this is the guy in the class that you know is going to misbehave and do the bad things that you don't actually want to do because you don't want to get in trouble. So you just give him all of the bad ideas. Like, this is what you should do. He's like, you know what? I got nothing.
Well,
to lose now.
what
Let's
do you do
this.
though?
Tell Jimmy, he'll do it.
I
Yeah.
think you are right. This is all hilarious. And what do you do when you're met with Greg Cote's stinging criticism of Jimmy Butler? And only Jimmy Butler, by the way, because Greg's not criticizing the Heat.
No, I don't blame the Heat for not wanting to extend a lavish max contract on a 35-year-old guy. I think that's a smart business decision by the Heat.
And you understand Jimmy wanting to get his money.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but if he's not getting it here, how about show some class, be a professional, play hard for the last part of this season,
Play it out.
and if you get traded, fine, and if you don't, become a free agent and do your thing.